podcast called Dub Jellison Podcast.
He probably doesn't remember this at all.
Yeah, we work together. It's easy.
This is kind of real. Like, holy shit.
And so it's really cool to get to be a part of that.
Hey, you know how it is, Bill. Hey, when
you now tune into the biggest ever.
We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
I don't remember that. That's crazy.
I went to the Purdue game last night.
I watched the Purdue game last night, and it was a late night for me. So I can only imagine what the late night was for you. It seemed like that second half was never ending. Well, not the second half. Like the last 8 minutes was never ending.
Yeah, it was rough. People were pissed too.
Well, they have a right to be pissed.
They were not happy. But
they have a right to be pissed. There's a lot of stuff that happened in that game that gave the game away. So, yeah. I mean, they just looked good. Purdue looked good. They just didn't look good to end the first half and to end the game. And it was more self-inflicted wounds. That was the crazy part. I mean, they're going into score right before halftime, and they fumble the football right around the 20-yard line. And then they let him go down and score, but terrible tackling, you know? So that game at halftime probably should have been 17-14 Purdue or 14-13 Penn State, right? Yeah. And at that point, it goes into halftime 21-10, so completely different ball game. You come back, you take the lead. You have the ball with the lead, 31-28, I think it was, with 6 minutes left. And you have that possession. You take like a minute off the clock, you get the ball back, you take very little time off the clock. I don't know. It was bad time management, bad execution, bad tackling, missed throw on that one where the guy was wide open on the corner that would have ended the game. And then you let them come back and score with less than a minute left and lose the game. That's the problem really with like Purdue and IU football. Is they find ways to lose. You know what I mean? They find ways to lose instead of like making that play to win. And they turn into totally different teams when they have the lead and they're trying to sustain the lead than they are when they're trying to come back. And I don't know. It was a rough game to watch just because, you know, living in Indiana now, I want to see Indiana teams do well. And Purdue, after the season they had last season with O'Connell at quarterback, I really thought they were going to come in and have a really good year. Statement game, right? Friday night game against Penn State, national television. And, I mean, they should have probably won the game by double digits. If the end of the first half and the end of the game goes, you execute, you probably should win the game by 10, 14 points. It was rough, man. But that's the problem with playing football all your life is you sit there and you analyze the game rather than just watch and enjoy the game. So I should have it was a really good football game to watch if you just are a football fan. So it is what it is.
I was up in the box, but I saw West Virginia and Pitt was really good too. So
I was flipping back and forth for a little bit, and I saw Pitt take the lead in the third quarter, and then I stopped. Then I was just all Penn State Purdue, so I didn't get to see too much of that. And then I saw Tennessee kind of whopped up on Ball State pretty good, which you would expect a little bit. I was just hoping a little better showing from Ball State. But, now IU, Illinois tonight and Notre Dame, Ohio State tomorrow are probably the two games I'm going to watch. I went to Wisconsin, and my Badgers play Illinois State. So hopefully I can see the game, but it's probably not going to be a very good game. So
hopefully for your sake.
Yeah, hopefully. I need Graham Mertz to show up this year. I need Graham Mertz to be the quarterback he was supposed to be coming out of high school. So and he started out with a bat on fire 2 years ago with 5 touchdown passes. He actually tied my record at Wisconsin in his first game with 5 touchdown passes. And then we've been looking for that Graham Mertz ever since.
I feel like he did play well down the stretch last year.
Yeah, there was one game against Minnesota. Not just him, the entire team didn't play well. And a lot of it, the quarterback position is a lot of what the offensive line does. And I didn't feel like the offensive line really played all that great last year for him. a lot of pressure, a lot of under duress throws, and which kind of led to a lot of his turnovers and mistakes. So I'm hoping they kind of shore things up this year. But that's the nice thing about big Wisconsin being in the West Division, right? I mean, you always got a chance to win that West Division, even if you're on a down year. So, but I'm excited for USC and UCLA to join the Big Ten. It'll be interesting to see how they handle those schedules, with those teams coming from the West Coast and teams going out to the West Coast, because when you were in the NFL and you were traveling, like say East Coast to West Coast or Midwest to West Coast, it was tough, especially when you would play like a San Diego would come in, you play them at like a 1:00 game Eastern, and you knew it was, 11 o'clock game for them, and they had to get up like super early. So it does affect you, and people don't really think about those kind of things.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird because I'm a Big Ten guy, like my whole life. So seeing them playing in the Big Ten now is gonna be crazy. It's gonna take a few years to get used to.
I agree with you, because when I was at Wisconsin, the year before I got to Wisconsin, we played UCLA in the Rose Bowl, right? So, and then we played Stanford in the Rose Bowl. But now, like, those teams are going to be in the Big Ten, which is crazy. But hopefully, it makes the Big Ten better, right? I mean, you add the Maryland, you add Rutgers, and neither of those schools really have had a good showing in the Big Ten since they've been added. And now you add USC and UCLA. You just hope that it just makes for a different type of football and a better league. Because as much as I hate to say it, the SEC is kind of the division, right? It's kind of the league. It's what everybody's kind of striving to be. So I don't think the Big Ten will ever get there from a speed standpoint, but we could definitely get there from a competition standpoint. And that's kind of what I hope for the Big Ten, because I'm a Big Ten guy too. I grew up in Michigan. I went to school in Wisconsin. I live in Indiana. So, I mean, Big Ten to the bone. It's just, you just wish they, year in and year out, it was like the Big Ten was 20, 30 years ago.
I had Ben Hartsock on. I think you played with him for a year or two.
I did. I played against him at Ohio State, and then I played with him with the Colts. He never really got his footing with the Colts, but then he played a long time after he left. I think he went to Atlanta for a while, and I want to say the Jets, but I could be wrong about the Jets. But yeah, he a really good guy. I actually saw him. He was doing some announcing, and I'm not sure if it was for ESPN or who it was for, but I saw him at one of the Colts games when I was doing the radio after I got done playing. And yeah, great guy, great family. Just obviously Ohio State guy, which huge knock against him. Obviously, huge knock against him. But he definitely made up for all the other attributes that he has.
Well, you said Kevin Warren's probably telling all the Big Ten teams, "Hey, I just got you guys a $7 billion deal. It's time to close the gap."
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, SEC is just different. I need to get down there and see a game, even if it's at like Tennessee or Ole Miss, like not even an Alabama or LSU game.
I know. But it's crazy the disparity in even the SEC, right? You got your top teams that are always top teams, and I think I heard an interview from Nick Saban, in the offseason saying last year was a rebuilding year. I mean, holy smokes! I would love a rebuilding year where you go to the national championship and just come up short, right? So, but everything's crazy now. Everything's crazy. I mean, you look at college football, you look at college sports in general, but college football with the transfer portal and the NIL deals. And I mean, back when I was making my decision whether or not where I was going to go, what scholarship I was going to take, it was based on the school, the education, how quickly was I going to play. Now it's based on the money. It's based on, and you can make essentially what a lot would say there's a wrong decision and just end up somewhere different every year. I have I have a big family I grew up with in Michigan, and one of my cousins went to Bowling Green to play softball. She was a really good softball player. She started dating the quarterback at Bowling Green. Well, his name was Jared Dodgy. So Jared played quarterback for Bowling Green, and then he transferred to West Virginia, and then he played at West Virginia for a little bit, and now he's at Western Kentucky. And I think he's looking to start for them. So he's 3 schools in his 6 years or 5-6 years, however long he's been there. But and his was basically, I mean, I kind of agreed with his. Started out at Bowling Green, wanted to go to a bigger, better program. So he went to West Virginia. I'm not sure what the situation was surrounding him to go to Western Kentucky, but he follows that Zap that's now with the Patriots. In Western Kentucky, they throw the ball over the field. So you go there to try to get the stats up to try to get to the league, right? So that makes sense. But the transfer portal, to me, where it's detrimental is these kids coming out of high school, going into college now, they want to be given everything, right? They want to be given the starting job. They want to be, and nobody's willing to sit at a school, learn, work for it, and then get it, and then play 2-3 years and be successful. Everybody wants it now, right? So you see all of these moving parts of where kids are going in the mindset of the instant gratification of, I want it now and not work for it. And when I went to Wisconsin, there was a senior quarterback, a redshirt freshman quarterback, me as a true freshman quarterback, and another kid coming in same class I was. I ended up being 3rd string to start and expected the senior to start all year and then battle with the kid that was 1 year older than me for the starting position. Well, senior ends up getting hurt. Redshirt freshman ends up going in. His name was Brooks Bollinger. And then he ends up basically being the starter for the next few years. I played a lot because he would get dinged up and I did well. And there was 1 year we were 1A and 1B quarterbacks, but any kid in that situation nowadays is gone. Yeah. They're out of there. You know what I mean? And maybe that's the right decision. Maybe that's the wrong decision. I don't know, but it just feels like it's so quick to make a move nowadays that it's just hard for me to understand that. And then how much these kids are getting paid just to play college football is crazy. I mean, we thought it was good to have, $500-700 left over from our scholarship check. Now they're making hundreds of thousands and the millions of dollars, and they're living in these lavish lifestyles. It's awesome, but I think there needed to be a little bit more regulations behind it before it was rolled out. Just because you give somebody that age, that kind of money, who really, a lot of these kids haven't even performed on the field yet. It's crazy because I heard the story about the LSU quarterback that was given all these NIL deals, and obviously it's based off your name, image, likeness. It's not based off of performance on the field. So he doesn't win the starting job. I think he ends up quitting football. He still gets to keep his NIL deals just because it has nothing to do with performance on the field, which it's nuts. And the schools with the biggest boosters and the deepest pockets are going to be getting a lot of these recruits just because, it's the way of the world, right? Where can I go? Where am I going to enjoy myself? But if I have a chance to make some big bucks, I'm gonna try to make those big bucks too. So I'm sitting here rambling about stuff. Sorry about that, man.
No, you're good. I think CJ Stroud just gave like $60,000 of his NIL deal to his teammates. He's buying them all or he gave him like $500 to buy a suit.
Yeah, see, that's awesome. See, that's really cool. But I could always see, and that's a smart move by him. So whoever's kind of talking to him, if it was his idea, great. But if it was people that are around him, that's awesome too, because he's surrounded by the right people. Because you can create a lot of animosity within a team, especially at that age. If you got a guy like that making big bucks and then somebody who's not, right, or has no NIL deals. So, and that's the last thing you want, because that'll tear that team apart, or any team apart, in no time.
I know we got off on a little tangent, but
we did.
I let it slide. I want to talk about Pro Team Tactical, obviously, talking to Jim Sorgi, former NFL quarterback, co-founder of Pro Team Tactical. Talk to me a little bit about Pro Team Tactical, why you started it and how it's grown.
Yeah. So me and my business partner, who's actually a really good friend of mine, his name is Joey Vandiver. He played Major League Baseball, and I played NFL football. So we started a company called Protein Tactical Performance, and what it is, and we're really proud of it, is it's basically taking care of first responders, public safety members, police officers, firefighters, EMS, corrections, taking care of them and giving them the red carpet treatment like athletes get. And if anybody who's ever played, I mean, college athletics, high level college athletics, professional athletics, knows that you kind of get the red carpet treatment in a lot of different areas, but you especially get the red carpet treatment in the areas of performance, right? And injury prevention and injury rehab. And what we found out, because we both have a lot of public safety family members. You know, I have a lot of firefighters in my family. He has firefighters in law enforcement in his family. It's kind of a shame the way we expect our public safety first responders who come at a moment's notice when we're in a time of need, how they're taken care of in those areas. Performance injury prevention. So we decided to start it based on our experiences at high level college and collegiate and professional athletics, is to start a company that provides those type of services to first responders. So if you've ever been to a athletic training room, we create tactical athlete training rooms. So we create tactical athlete training rooms where they go when they get hurt, and then we give them that red carpet specialized kind of care for the job specific duties that they do. So they come to us, they get seen, they get evaluated, and then we put them on the path of recovery as quickly as possible. So athletes, all these teams that have these athletes, there's an investment in these athletes to be on the field, right? To perform on the field. If you're on the sidelines, you're not doing anybody any favors, right? So it's the exact same thing with police officers and firefighters. So what we do is they come to us with an injury. We try to keep them on duty while we rehab that injury. If we can't, if it's an injury that we got to pull them from duty or they have to come off duty, then we put that plan together to get them back to duty as quickly as possible, just like an athlete would. And then on top of that, we look at what are the underlying reasons maybe for this injury. How well do you move? How well do you move with the equipment on? And then we take that and we put some strength on top of it. So we try to make you a better mover. We try to make you more strong. We try to help you eat right. We try to do all these things that athletes are given to make you be successful at your job. Because really, you look at athletes, and athletes are entertainers. They go out there and they win and lose games, right? We talk about the Purdue-Penn State game. There was no life and death situation last night in that game, right? It was just basically entertainment. Go out there, have fun, play game, try to win. Police officers and firefighters get called to a scene or get called. There is no winning and losing. If you lose, sometimes people lose their lives. So and it's the people you're going to see, it's themselves, it's the people they work with, it could be others. So we feel like they need to, if athletes are given that kind of treatment, then damn sure public safety should be giving that kind of treatment, just because of what they're called on to do at any given notice. So that's the kind of the whole premise behind Protein Tactical. We started it in 2018. We started business actually in 2019 with the Indianapolis Fire Department. We've been with them ever since. And then we picked up the Indianapolis Metro Police Department. And then we kind of started opening our own facilities kind of all over Indiana. We got 3, 4 in central Indiana, 1 up in northwest Indiana. And those are the locations that we serve all the suburban and smaller departments. So police, fire, EMS, corrections, and we're their first stop for any kind of injury they may have on duty or off duty, to try to keep them where they need to be at work, saving lives every day. So that's the premise behind Protein Tactical.
I absolutely love that. As a guy that my dad's in law enforcement, I mean, when I told him you were coming on, he talked glowingly of you, although his department. I think they use somebody else, but I mean, what you guys are doing, it's special because, like you talked about, law enforcement and firefighters, EMT. I mean, they don't get the recognition or appreciation that they probably deserve a lot of the times. And I mean, you guys going out and creating something strictly for them is so special to me.
Yeah, and they deserve it, right? I mean, they've dedicated their lives to helping others and serving their communities. You know, we should dedicate something for them, for that sacrifice, for that service. And I mean, it just makes sense. You look at the type of jobs they have, a lot of them were athletes before. A lot of them know the model. A lot of them played college athletics, definitely played most of the time through high school, but someone on to college, someone onto the professional ranks in all different sports. And they're used to the physical demands of the job, but their jobs are so physically demanding that the body's just going to break down as you get older. It's just the way it is. So the more we can kind of keep them in the best shape possible, but then also fix those sprains, strains, tweaks that they get along the way, so it doesn't turn into something big, so it doesn't turn into surgery. Because honestly, it's giving back to them for the job now, so they can do their job at a high level and be at peak performance when called upon. But it's a lot of it is based off of wanting them to enjoy life after the job is over, and really not have to worry about backs and knees and shoulders and all this stuff from, wearing, the vest or the belt or the equipment, or, doing all our trainings that they had to go through. And then what we're also getting ready to start is our behavioral health, mental health component to it as well, just because, the physical affects the mental affects the physical. And you see that in athletics. And athletics, it's a high stress job, but there's no more high stress job than putting your life on the line to save other people's lives. And what police officers and firefighters see on a day-to-day basis or over the course of their career, it weighs on them heavily. So we're putting together that program just for police and fire to try to empty that bucket along their career, just so they don't deal with those lingering long-term effects of anything they might be dealing with, such as, post-traumatic stress or anxiety or depression or lack of sleep, or even a substance abuse issue, maybe, just from all the things that they've seen and a way to try to escape from it. So, no, we're proud of what we're trying to build. And what we've built so far, and we just hope it kind of continues to grow here in Indiana, but also out of state and nationally, just to try to get these services to the people that deserve it.
And what are your guys' next steps in terms of trying to do that?
We're pretty much established here in Indy for what we do currently. Now we're putting that mental health piece together, so that'll be another service that we provide here in Indiana. Conversations have been had with departments all over the country as far as, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to get accomplished, how we feel like we can help them get it there, because every department's different. So it's a lot of communication back and forth with here's what we offer, here's what you need, how do we mold it to fit exactly what's best for your department. So a lot of those conversations have been had. The tough part is in athletics, there's most of the time unlimited budgets, right? I mean, they're just getting it just because it's the best thing for their member, for the players. When you're dealing with, cities and municipalities and things like that and departments, there's budgets, and they have budgets that they're kind of, restrained to. So it's trying to work around those budgets to give them the best program possible. But that's also the best thing about our program is it's kind of a win-win-win, because it's a win for the member because it's better care. It's a win for the department because you have a healthier, happier, more successful department, and it's a win for the city because actually with our programs you actually save money, because it cuts down on the time they're off work where you're having to replace them with somebody on overtime or something like that. So next steps are just continue those conversations, get with the right people, and just try to spread the word on what we're trying to do, and get to the point where you're putting up tactical athletic training rooms in other states.
That's awesome, man. All the best to you for that, first of all. I mean, like I said, you guys are doing something special there. I wanted to transition to football a little bit. After you retired, I know you got into broadcasting a little bit, doing stuff with the Colts. Was it difficult for you to transition and try to find that passion, the things that you wanted to do?
It was, but things kind of fell into my lap a little bit as well. I got done playing 2011. I started doing the broadcasting stuff. I had done it a little bit throughout my career with radio and some TV stuff, but I didn't really know if it was something I wanted to kind of dive into all full-fledged. And I did the preseason television broadcast for the Colts in 2012, the first year Andrew Luck got there. And I enjoyed it. And it just kind of worked out where going into 2013, the color commentator for the radio ended up stepping down because he got a job in Louisville, I believe. And that spot kind of opened up. So at that time, I was asked if I could do that or would be willing to do that. And I thought it would be awesome. It'd be like playing without having to put out the pads, right? I get to travel with the team. I get to be around the team. I get to, enjoy football and kind of analyze and talk about it. So started that in 2013, did that for 8 years. And then it came to a point where it was starting Pro Team Tactical in 2018 and really trying to devote the time to grow that and make that as successful as it could be was taken up a lot of times during the week, and then during the Colts season on the weekends, sometimes if it's an away game, you leave on Saturday and you don't get back until late Sunday. So it's work all week, it's work all weekend. And I have 3 boys. Now they're 16, 14, and 8, but back then they were a little younger and a lot of their activities were on the weekends. So I was missing some things and I was always distant. I was always working and it just wasn't the kind of, work-life balance that I wanted to have. So something kind of had to give. I really felt passionate about what we were trying to do with Pro Team and wanting to grow that. And wanted the weekends to the family. So it was just kind of a logical choice to stop doing the radio and spend that time with the family and then use the time during the week to grow this business. And it's worked out great. I get to enjoy the weekends, watch college football on Saturday, watch NFL football on Sunday, and then get up, go to work Monday through Friday and get to practices and get to games and do all that stuff for the kids. And it's right now, I think it couldn't be better.
And I know I'm interested to hear when you started kind of thinking about your next steps, because as a backup quarterback, you know your role, but you don't know how long you're going to be in it. Because you look at someone like Chad Henne, who's been kind of a career backup, gotten starts in various places, but I forget how long he's been in the league. But then you have other guys like Curtis Painter, who I think he only played a couple years or a few years.
Yeah, 3, 4, something like that.
Yeah, and then he left. So what was your mindset in terms of that? Were you like, okay, this is gonna end soon, or I might do this for the long haul?
Yeah, and honestly, we all feel like we could do it forever, right? I feel like I could still play today, and I definitely could have played longer than I did, which was 7 years. It's all about the situation that and the choices you make in the situation that you're in. So I had 6 years with the Colts. And back up to answer your question, you think about it, but it's very hard to put a plan together of what you're going to do afterwards, because unless you're doing it to some extent, it's hard to determine what you want that to be. So 6 years with the Colts, 1 year with the Giants. So then you'll kind of see these clips pop up. Everybody's been sending them to me. I don't know if you see Victor Cruz in his first game against the Jets catching touchdown passes. Well, that was my last football game I ever played, and I was the one throwing them those touchdown passes, right? Well, in that last one to the left, I got hit. I landed on my shoulder, and I ended up having surgery. So I was out that whole year, and then IR back then is you're out the whole year. You couldn't come back. Now you can come back at a certain point in time after a certain amount of time. So I was out that whole year, and then the lockout came. So missed the whole year. The lockout came. By the time the lockout was over, there's a lot of rumors about what's going to happen, where you're going to go. I had the Giants come back and offer me a contract. And then there was rumors that Cincinnati was going to come and offer me a contract. And so at the time, the choice was probably maybe to go to Cincinnati. We could come back and live here. Family could come back and live here in Indiana. I could kind of commute back and forth. It's not that far. Well, that ended up not happening by the time you go back to the Giants signed David Carr to be their backup to Eli. So at that point, you're out of options. You know what I mean? So if I would have just probably made the right decision, sign that contract with the Giants, go back to the Giants, who knows what might happen? Who knows how long you're a backup from that standpoint? Who knows how long you're going to play if you bounce around and things like that? But I know I would have gotten more years in the 7 that I got in. But I chose to wait to see if this would come along. It didn't. This wasn't available anymore. And then I kind of spent that whole next year kind of working out for teams, worked out for Miami, worked out for the Raiders. And nothing really ever panned out. Had good workouts. It was just they always went with the guy that had experience with the offense coordinator, had experience in the offense or something like that. And then you get to the point where you're out a year, and then you're kind of forgotten about it at that point. So, and you always got new quarterbacks kind of coming in, new quarterbacks kind of shining. So it just never kind of worked out for me to get back into the league. But I feel like if I would have made the right decision and probably went back with the Giants, signed that contract, I probably would have backed up Eli for when back somebody else up or something like that, because at that point I would have had 10, 11, 12 years in, and people are always looking for a reliable, veteran backup. So and that's kind of what I meant by choices and decisions kind of dictate how long you play and what you do. So but I feel like all choices lead you to the path that you are on today, right? I mean, if I play 15 years, that kind of, so I don't get done until 2018, maybe I don't start pro team tactical for police and fire, right? And so, I think this is, as much as it's painful, and I love football, and I would have liked to have played football for a long time and probably done it for 20 years, 18, 20 years as a backup, or maybe got a chance to start. I feel like that decision kind of led me to back home in Indiana doing the radio, to meet, my buddy and my business partner, to get us on the path to start Sorgi Sports and Pro Team Tactical and put us where we are today. So no regrets, no complaints. Miss putting on the pads, miss being in the locker room, miss being at training camp and riding the planes and the buses and stuff like that. But I get to watch my kids play football and baseball and basketball and have fun just being that.
What do you miss most?
God, that's a good question. I miss playing, but I miss being in the locker room. Honestly, what I miss the most is throughout the weeks is like putting that game plan together as a chess match to beat the other team. Like the meetings and the discussions behind how should we block this, or let's throw this play out because this play's better, or this is what they do. And then. So I missed that part of it, that kind of that game plan stuff throughout the week to put the best plan together to play the team you're playing. But then I also missed the in-game situations where you expect them to do something and they do something completely different, or they do something that's a little bit of a wrinkle, and you got to figure it out kind of like quickly with everybody on the sidelines through, the pictures and the iPads and talking in headsets on how to fix it, and doing it at halftime in the locker room. I mean, it kind of puts you on a spot. It kind of puts you in a corner, and it's how you fight. Like, can you figure it out and fight your way out of it? Like the Colts, honestly, the teams I was on with the Colts, we didn't find ourselves in that position all too often. I mean, It was more like, if we got the ball, we were going to score and then stop them and score. And the next thing you know, we're up 17-21-0. Or if they got the ball, we were going to stop them and score and then stop them and score and be up 14-17-0. So very rarely were we kind of put in a tough spot, but being able to work together to figure out and solve those problems was a lot of fun to me.
What were those meeting rooms like with you and Peyton and maybe Tom Moore and Clyde and all the coaches? What were those meeting rooms like during the week, trying to break down the defenses?
Yeah, it depends on the situation of the day or of the week, right? It depends on if you're coming off of a loss or you're coming off of a win. Are you playing a division game, or are you playing the Patriots? Are you playing, the room kind of lends itself to the situation that you were in, right? I mean, if it's a little tense, if you needed a win or you were playing a rival team or a division game, it was a pretty tense week, right? If you're 7-0 and just playing kind of a Sunday 1:00 game, it is a little bit less of a tense week. But there was always that, and Peyton kind of led this as well as the coaches. There was always that push, right? There was never really that time to relax during the season, right? Because we were always trying to push, we were always trying to be better, we was always trying to get to the next level, and that would be throughout the off season, into training camp, into the season. And then so there was always that sense of urgency, but the room and the week kind of met what the room and the week was like. So but it was tense. It was tense at times, and everybody had their opinions, but a lot of great minds in that room, man. I mean, Peyton, and then Tom Moore, and then Coach Caldwell, and Coach Christensen, and Coach Reich was in there for a little bit toward the end with me and him. And so it was a lot of good football talk. Coach Howard Mudd, I mean, I'd be remiss to remember him. And I mean, just the best offensive line coach out there. I mean, if you needed to figure out a solution and solve a blocking scheme or come up with something, he was the best at it. So a lot of fun, a lot of good memories, a lot of good talks.
I mean, Peyton, he seemed all the stories now, because I mean, he wasn't on social media for a long time, and then now he's got the Manning cast and all that stuff. So we're finding out more and more stories of how he had his thumb on everything on those teams. What was it like to see him kind of as a leader and in the face of that franchise?
Yeah, man. I mean, he did whatever job was needed of him at the time, right? I mean, if it was starting quarterback, if it was leader of the team, if it was captain, if it was quarterback coach, if it was head coach, if it was CEO, if it was owner, whatever role he had to play, he was going to play it just to make sure everything went off without a hitch. And as much as he controlled, as much as he did on the football field, I would consider him, in my mind, just because I got to see it firsthand for 6 years, the best quarterback to ever play the game. Now, I know there's obviously arguments for others that are out there. There's obviously an argument for Tom Brady as the best, and you probably got to give it to Tom Brady just because of the success that he's had and how many Super Bowls he's been to and how long he's played and how many Super Bowls he's won. But from an in-game game planning, importance to the team standpoint in terms of wins and losses, I would say pound for pound, Peyton was the best quarterback to ever play the game. And it was truly amazing to watch him on the field orchestrate everything that he would orchestrate, almost to the point where you really didn't understand genius behind it, and you played the same position as him. There would be times where a play would come in from the sideline, we were a no huddle offense. So he was so good at getting the defense to show, but then he would pull out a play that we hadn't run or repped, or then it could be week 14 and we didn't rep it since training camp. And he would pull out the play, call the play, signal the play, and kudos to everybody that was on the field with him, offensive line, wide receivers, running back, because they obviously all remembered it, all was on the same page, and would run it and be successful and get it done. But that his brain was like a computer, it was like a memory bank, a hard drive, right? It just kind of saved everything. And it was tough for me to kind of get acclimated to that, because really until getting to the Colts, everything that I played in, all the systems I played in, was call the play, run the play, make a play, right? I mean, if things went haywire, you just make a play, be an athlete. Our offense was all about getting in the right play for the right situation against the right defense. And he was the best at it. He was literally the best at it. And just, creating opportunities and making people better. And that's why we were so good when you put a team out there where you got Reggie Wayne on one side, Marvin Harrison on the other side, Adrian James or Joseph Adai in the backfield, or Dominic Rhodes and a Dallas Clark at tight end, and a Brandon Stokely. That's why those teams, I mean, there were times where, numerous times, I can't even count how many times we didn't punt. We scored every drive. I mean, it was just to the level where if you weren't doing that, then you weren't getting better, right? I mean, every year was a double-digit win season. Every year was a possible Super Bowl. Every year you were going to make the playoffs in some way, shape, or form. And honestly, I felt a lot of pressure with that, because as his backup, if something did happen, I have to go out there, and I'm not saying perform like that, but I have to win, right? I have to win, and I have to, keep the team, functioning like he would. And there was a lot of pressure with that, just to be able to do that. I knew I wasn't going to do it like him, but I had to win. And it never really happened to where he got hurt for a long period of time when I was there. But the anxiety, the stress of trying to be good enough and work hard enough and learn enough to be able to do that was tough. So football season was a little bit was stressful. And now you're talking to a 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29-year-old kid at the time. Right now, I turned 42 in December this year. I wish I could take this mindset and this mind and go back and play back then, right? Because you understand it's not that big, it's not that serious, right? And I think sometimes you have to play with that mentality a little bit to play better and not put so much pressure on yourself. So it's funny, it's the old saying, youth is wasted on the young and wisdom is wasted on the old, right? I mean, if you could take a lot of the stuff you learned as you get older and go back and do it over again, how much more successful you would be, because you would just understand it's not a life and death situation. So, but Peyton was he was an enigma, man. He was so good on the football field, but then he was so good at taking his success on the football field and creating the success in other markets and other fields. And that's kind of why you see, I mean, he's been retired for 5-6 years now, and he's still as big of a name and as big of a personality as he was back then. I mean, from the endorsements to all the stuff that he's doing outside of football from a business standpoint. He's got good people around him. He's got smart people around him, but he's extremely intelligent himself and understands that he can kind of carry that legacy and that name and that idolization into more successes in his lifetime.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think you guys overlap. You guys might have for a year or two. Pat McAfee, it's my favorite thing ever. He talks about in the heyday of Peyton, when he would tell the crowd to quiet down, babies would stop crying in hospitals across Indianapolis. I mean, he had that much of an impact. And I mean, growing up for me, being a Colts fan, looking at Peyton, you're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be every year. And then obviously he gets hurt, he leaves. Everything like that happens. I know Peyton was, I don't know if notorious is the right word, but I know he got onto his teammates quite a bit. I know there's a story of Austin Collie tried to catch a one-handed ball and Peyton just pointed to the sideline. Did you have any times where Peyton just ripped you a new one?
No, I never had one of those times. And honestly, I was never really put in a position to have one of those times. I will take it, but there was one time that, but it wasn't a situation where anything crazy. I was playing in his stead because we had sealed everything up or controlled our own fate. And it was one of those games toward the end of the season where he went out and played a series, and then I would come in and play the rest of the game. And I remember us having to burn like 2 timeouts in my first drive out there. And I believe one of them was actually my fault. So I had to call timeout, but the other one, because he would come out of the game and put on the headset and call plays. So he put on the headset and called the play. So he called a play, but he called a play for the wrong personnel that we had on the field. So I burned the second time out. I'm coming off the field, and you could tell he was hot. He kind of had that look on his face. He was getting ready to go. So he said something, and I was like, I need different personnel. So he kind of looks up and he goes, "You're right." And he just kind of looked back down at the call sheet, and then we went on from there. But that was really the only time he ever really got on me. But I've seen him get on some guys. I mean, just because there was an expectation there, right? I mean, you see the clip going around all the time about him and Jeff Saturday fighting on the sidelines, and then him and Tark getting into it. And you see my skinny butt kind of come in there and try to stand in the middle of them, like I was going to do something. Or you see that clip where there's a play with Donald Brown where he can be heard yelling, "God damn it, Donald," as he's kind of running to the right and slides. And he expected perfection from himself, and he would work toward that he expected that from everybody else. He was like that Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan used to get on his teammates and really try to hold them accountable, because he's like, if I could put that kind of pressure on them, then I know that they're going to be able to handle that pressure when it's under the lights. And I think he was the exact same way. Practice hard, practice perfect. So when you go into the game, it's easy. And then he expected everybody to do what you practice, or to do play to a high level because of that. So and that was the expectation. That was the expectation of all those years. And you're right. Everybody that grew up a Colts fan, kind of in that generation, expected all the teams to be like that. And I think that's the hardest thing for the fans right now is you're still trying to find that guy, or trying to, and I mean, I told you, pound for pound, in my eyes, the best quarterback ever to play the game. So they don't come around very often, right? A good one in Andrew Luck. And I feel like that era of Colts football was too successful too early. First year Andrew got there, they ended up winning and making the playoffs and things like that. So too successful too early, and they weren't able to continue to build that team around him. And I think that was kind of the detriment of that era. And now, after he's retiring, it's just kind of going from quarterback to quarterback to quarterback, right? You go from Phillip Rivers to Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan, and it's just trying to find that succession plan for long-term success, for 10, 12-year success, rather than 1-2 year success. And I don't think and I think they're doing it right. They're not just going to go get a guy. They're not just going to go get a guy that they think is going to fail. So they go get these quarterbacks that they think they can get a year or two out of them. I think they really thought Carson Wentz could have been maybe a long-term solution, and that didn't really work out. But Matt Ryan, I think he's entering his 14th, 15th year, and quarterbacks have a shelf life, right? So if you can get 2, maybe 3 years out of him and put that succession plan together for a young guy to develop for a year or two, and then take over and give you that long-term success, that would be the best thing for the organization. And you just hope you find that guy. But the NFL game is so different than the college game now. It really is. I mean, the shotgun stuff, the looking to the sideline to see what the coaches want you to run, that stuff doesn't work in the NFL. You need to be able to think. You need to be able to react. You need to be able to do it in a short amount of time and to fix things and make plays. And it just you're not getting those quarterbacks coming out of college anymore that can do that.
Mm-hmm. The last thing before I let you go here, that Super Bowl run in 07. I mean, how special is that? How often do you think back to those seasons and that run and those teammates on that team? I know you mentioned a few of them. I mean, all pros, Pro Bowlers, some Hall of Famers just littered across the roster.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it, man. You look at the Colts Ring of Honor, right? You look at the Hall of Fame guys that have come out of guys on that team, and it's going to continue to be like that. And it wasn't just on offense, it was on defense as well. But the special thing about that season is really the offense kind of carried the season, right? The offense was dynamic the whole season. And then in the playoffs, it was kind of the opposite. You know, the defense kind of carried us through some of those playoff wins, especially the win in Baltimore where we didn't score a touchdown. I think we ended up winning the game 16-13 or something like that, 13-10.
I believe it was 15-6, all field goals.
15-6, all field goals.
Crazy, like, yeah.
It was crazy. And, you know, the defense really stepped up and we won that game. And then, you know, to be able to come back and play I think what made that so sweet is how many times we lost to the Patriots in key games during that era. And then to be able to beat them at home on an interception by Marlon Jackson when you were down early in that game and come back late. I think that's kind of what set the tone for that season really being special. Is you kind of got that monkey off your back of getting to the Super Bowl, beating the Patriots, and then you get to the Super Bowl. The only bad thing about that season is it rained at the Super Bowl. And honestly, you know, it could have been a monsoon and none of us would have really cared. But yeah, it was a special season, one that we'll never forget. And I think we're coming up on what? Let's see, we had our 10-year anniversary, so we'll have our 20-year anniversary here in about 5 years, something like that. So a lot of fun, a lot of good memories.
That's special, man. Like I said, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know we had some technical difficulties the other day, but I really appreciate you and making time to do this and being so open and honest and sharing your stories.
Yeah, my pleasure. Hey, same computer too. That's the crazy thing. Same computer. Just when I did it on Tuesday, it was a black screen, and I was like, I don't know how to fix it. That's definitely not up my alley. So today it worked, and I'm glad. You have a great holiday weekend, and I'm sure we'll catch up and talk soon.
Yes, sir. You too. Stay safe.
All right. Bye-bye.